this thing on? Now you've watched the review. Now it's time to take this to a whole nother level and turn the Steam Deck into an emulation monster with Emudeck. Stay tuned. So now I've escaped my TV prison. What you're going to need is to be in desktop mode. And the first thing you'll need is something like Mozilla Firefox. Now, if you haven't got this installed already, you can get this from the Discovery Center. As we pull that up, we can just type in Firefox and it will be presented in front of us. Now, I've already installed it, so you'll probably see it sitting in the background just ready to go. But if you need to, you can just click install there and it will whir away and do that for you. Now, once you've got Firefox installed, all you need to do is navigate to Emudeck's website. If you just type in Emudeck in the browser, it will pick that up. And you'll be looking for the download. If you just download it, that will go into your download folder, which you can just click on the nice little tab and open the folder, make it really simple for you. And what you'll need to do is copy that to the desktop. So you can see I've already downloaded it previously. Now what I've done is, just to make this video a little bit easier, I removed my old installation of Emudeck and started again. But if you place that on the desktop and then run it, it will sit and run some scripts. Let's just close this first. So it runs some scripts. Now, because I'm capturing this using a capture card, I do have two desktops, so I will have to just drag the odd window across the two screens. But there's the script that's running. I'll just pick up the window. Now, they've actually made the Emudeck a lot easier to install. So you have these two modes. You've got easy mode and custom mode. Now, I'll use custom mode just so you can see the difference between the two, but fundamentally either works just fine. Now, if I go into custom, it gives me the options of where to install. So I've got internal storage. Now I'm going to use my SD card, and I recommend you do the same. Choosing your device, they're now starting to support more than just the Steam Deck, but I'll select that one. And then from an emulator point of view, we've got all these options. Now, I must make clear at this point that ROMs are copyrighted, so do not ask me where to get those from. So, similar with BIOS files, this video is just for educational and reference purposes. Now, if you do have a Retro Achievements account, here is a good opportunity for you to put in this information. Now, I do have one, but for the life of me can't remember. And then you can go through the bezel setup, which basically has each option and it gives you an overview. So I tend to prefer mostly the original ones. I'm very much a retro gamer, so I like the original look and feel. And there are some bits that also simulate around the LCD, which we'll get to in a short while. But some of them do look better when they're stretched. It's like that one in particular does look quite nice in 16:9. Similar with the GameCube, it does, however, mention that there may be some video breakup, but I can live with that. And here we are with the LCD shaders, so it gives you that more authentic feel to what they used to look like. It's a personal preference one. And similar with the CRT. I know all about those. I've been trapped in one for a while. And this one, I actually preferred it off. And then again, you can choose your theme. And this is for Emulation Station. And there are two ways you can run these emulated ROMs. You can use Emulation Station as your front end, or you can use the ROM Manager to put the individual games into your Steam library and run them that way, which I'll show you both options. So this is going to go away and do the installation. It does take a little while. So I'll just speed up this installation process somewhat in this video. Now, it depends on what you're writing to. If you're writing to the internal NVMe, it will be a lot quicker, most likely, than it will be to the micro SD card. Now once complete, if you're using just the Steam Deck, so not an external monitor, it will give you the option to swipe to get some additional tips, but adding games, it clearly states there what you need to do. So what I will do is just pull up that folder so that you can see it. So there are different labelled folders for ROMs and BIOSes. Now if you're not sure which machines or consoles need BIOSes, there's plenty of information out there on the internet. Similar if you're looking for ROMs, not that I can condone it, but again Google will probably help you most likely. But as you can see, all of those ROM areas are listed there, so all you need to do is drop those in. And again, if you need a little bit of documentation, the Emudeck website has got some really useful tips on what file formats they need to be in. So you can clearly see that. Now if we continue the rest of the installation, I'll just finish off. Now to launch the ROM Manager, you have to shut Steam down first. However, to make that easier, I'll just open up Emudeck again, because it does give you some good tools and options to use, which are clearly stated at the bottom, and if you need to do updates, you can do from there. And again, there's access to plenty of guides, and if you need to do the uninstall, again, that's just highlighted. If you need to update your emulators, it's just a simple click. But what we're looking for is the Steam ROM Manager. Now it will prompt you that it needs to close Steam. So we just need to click yes, or even shut Steam. If you're not happy that it's running, just close it. And I have opened Steam ROM Manager. It's just sat on the other screen, so I'll drag it over. Now, with this, best not to alter any settings on the right unless you read through the documentation. But each one of these parsers, and think of a parser as like a scrubber. If you've ever used something like Plex, it's no different to that. What this enables you to do is basically pull in the posters or media information for that particular ROM. So if you want them to appear on the front screen, you just turn on the radio button. If you don't want them to, now you can just use Emulation Station and have every game running that way. However, we're just going to go to Preview, click Generate App List, and at the moment you'll see it's only got Emulation Station. And that's because that's all that I've done or run so far. If I clicked on emulators and rerun it, it would basically pull through all the emulators. But I'm not going to do that at the moment. I'm going to show you that in a short while. Going back to the tools and stuff, we have a couple of other bits that are quite useful. If we look at quick settings, that takes us back to those original choices we made, so we can change those out. We've got the check BIOS, so that gives you a good idea and indication of what might need a BIOS, and it will go and check your folder and the locations for them. And the compression tool, which is really, really useful. Now, I actually found with some that I had, I could compress them. So, well worth running once you've got your ROMs in the right place. And fundamentally, that is how you install Emudeck. Now, what I'm going to do in a moment is show you a little bit more on how that scrubber works. Now let's say I dropped a few ROMs into the Master System ROM file. I'll just use Alex the Kid because they're good examples. I used to love that game when I was younger. I am that old that I did own a Master System. I'm probably that old that I owned a few more previous to that as well. So what I'm going to do is just turn those Master System ones on, because what I want to do is show you what that looks like in regards to the other bits. Now you have noticed I did turn the emulator bits on, and running the rescrub I've now got the Alex the Kid ones. Now you can change the posters, by just clicking on the arrows and pick one you want. That cross-hatched type effect was very much how they used to look back in the day. It's pretty much like all the paper that we drew on in school as well. So how things changed. It's quite scary now looking back at some of these games that are about during my day and age of playing games and how far they've come. But that's fundamentally how you do that, and it will generate those for you, and you can swap them out. Now, if you're not quite happy with the end result, you can completely change it as well. There are options to download your own and install them. But what I'm going to do is show you this in gaming mode. So we're now back over in the standard SteamOS gaming mode, and if we go into library, now you can set this up in different ways, but I've got them in collections, which is what that ROM Manager does for you. So you may notice some ones previously. This is because I didn't correctly clear out my old Emudeck installation, but you can see the ones for the Master System are there. And what we can do is launch directly from here, and this is why I quite like this. So depending on how many ROMs you're putting in, will probably depend on whether you want them distributed this way. Now the problem is, if you want to play a particular game, you have to add the whole system. And there we are, that's how Let's Get Running. Now what I've done is I've added the PlayStation 1 BIOS file. So you can see in the BIOS checker it wasn't green earlier, it's now red or green. What I'll do is flip back to gaming mode again to show you a slightly different way of launching these. Now I mentioned this, rather than pulling through all of the PlayStation games into your library, you can do this a very different way. So what I'll do is pop into, as you can see, all the collections I've got and PlayStation, so they are listed there, and I could launch them that way, but that's not how I want to do it. So what I'll do is go to non-Steam in a moment, just like flying around the dashboard. And I will find Emulation Station, which set that, and you can favourite this just to make it easier. I probably will do that at a later date. It's just because I've reinstalled this. And this will launch Emulation Station, and from here, for anybody who's used Emulation Station, albeit via RetroPie or something very similar, you'll be used to this and how you can pack it out a little bit. But yeah, running just Crash Bandicoot, for example, using the Dock Station emulator. I've left the performance overlay on just so you can kind of see. Now, when you do this, make sure that you unlock 60 frames per second when you run any emulators. I see so many people on forums post about problems and challenges they're having, and it really seems to stutter and it's useless. It's certainly not useless, it's most likely you've deliberately dropped the frames per second down to save on battery life. You need to unlock the full 60. There are some tweaks and settings you may need for certain games depending on their resources, but yeah, this is Crash Bandicoot from the PlayStation 1. So welcome back, and in this video the overall guide was to show you how to install Emudeck on the Steam Deck, and we've hopefully covered that off. There's plenty of information out there on the internet. Obviously for copyright reasons, that's probably as much as I can show you and tell you. Now there's a couple of things that I used in the making of that video just to help me out a little bit. So I mentioned a capture card. I use an Elgato HD10S to do that and capture a particular cable that I use. There are other things that make it a little bit easier. One is to have one of these USB-C hubs, and I'll link the exact one I've got plus several alternatives in the description just to help. A keyboard and mouse helps massively. Now I happen to use the Logitech one, which is a built-in, so it's got a bit of both. They're great because they've got Unify software, so if you happen to lose a dongle, as long as you can find another dongle, you can repair about 7 devices to one dongle. And the last thing I use is a JSAUX Dock. Now, Steam do have their own official one out. To be honest, most of the ones you find on Amazon do a perfectly good job. My probably next purchase will be the one with the M2, which you can see there's quite a few connections on the back there, so plenty of opportunities to do what you like. But yeah, next time we'll probably look on Proton a little bit more, you know, and how some of the games work on the Steam Deck.